And I can see where the idea comes from because you're young. Your dreams haven't turned into your career yet. And you are still finding that and chasing that and figuring it out and doing whatever it is to get there. So where that's affected me is...
So what do you say to those people who say that, who think that about you then?
Well, honestly, I've never been able to get into like a one-on-one direct conversation with one of them. You just feel it coming out in the conversation, but it's very underneath, you know, but it's definitely there.
They're saying it without saying it.
Exactly, just making judgments without maybe being so bold to go that far. It's very more of a subtle thing in little sentences here and there. But
that's what I think about judgments, is that if people are bold enough, if a lady's bold enough to come up to say something to you in the store or whatever, you know, I don't know what the best tactic, because I don't know, because it's something that you're so passionate about. How do you just kind of be like, okay, well, those judgments are your judgments, sorry, you know, but the thing is there's absolutely nothing you can say at that point that's going to change her mind without getting in this big old long thing. Okay, but do you know how I live my life? This is what I do, and this is what I, you know, because they know nothing about you, and that's just it. They're seeing this outer image, or they're seeing exactly what they want to see, basically. And so you can't really take away that judgment from that lady without getting in this big old long discussion with her. And then it's like, what's the point? You're in the middle of a store. She really probably isn't going to take the time to listen to you or care, because if she's bold enough to say something like that, who knows what's going to come after that. And so, you know, and so that's why I think it's important to do the show, so people can say, okay, maybe, you know, maybe I've been wrong. Because most of the time, you know, stereotypes people tend to think of stereotypes in a negative aspect, and they have been going for generations and generations, but that doesn't mean that to this day they're still right. You know, people judge about everything these days, and it doesn't mean that they're right. So it's kind of like we need to get out there and say, you know what, your judgments and stereotypes are probably wrong. Why don't you give them a few minutes and say, okay, hey, you know what, maybe there's more to the story, maybe there's more to this person than what I'm giving her a chance to say, or what I'm giving her credit for.
Right, and I find it, I feel like I find those stereotypes most often in not necessarily with people of my age group or my peers. My peers are just more like, oh my God, they just see themselves as different. You know, like, oh wow, she's this totally different life from me, but she looks like me, and she's my age, and she sounds like me, but wow, she's got like this totally different life, and then they immediately put me in this other space. But where I get most of the judgments from is from the other side, from people who are married and have kids and did it the so-called right way, or like I'm saying, the schools, like the places where, mostly from areas where a family is really strong, from groups of people in that scenario who assume I must not be fulfilling my duties, and it does come across, but you know, I don't think I'm young enough anymore where people that lady was probably so bold to me because I was 17, and I was still, in her mind, a little kid who she could lecture. I don't get people lecturing me anymore because don't carry myself in a way that's going to invite a lecture, you know. Hopefully you would hope. Unless, you know, parents and stuff, but that's different.
So where do you see that you fit in if you don't really fit in with people your age because they don't have kids, and you feel like maybe you don't fit in with the, you know, 2.2 family aspect? Where do you feel that you fit in? Is there any one place?
Honestly, that's probably one of my biggest struggles because of the way that my life's changed. And even though I've had my son 13 years, you know, this is 13 years later, but that is going to continue to be, that's probably something that I will face the rest of my life, because as my son turns 18, I'll be 35, and chances are, I love my son, and I've done everything that I have in my power to do for him, but I couldn't imagine starting over with a baby after I just did all this on my own. And it probably will be time for me to then say, okay, now it's time for me to do some of the things that I maybe put off. And so just as I'm starting to do those things, people in my age group are going to be starting to get married and have babies. And so I'm going to be doing the whole different thing. I did the staying at home, and you know, not that, I don't stay at home all the time, but I did the more focused on the family life during my 20s, which is when everyone's out exploring all these things. And then I'll probably then go explore those things for myself.
You're doing it just
years.
a little bit backwards, which is not all maybe the best way for you. You know, everyone takes a different route, and you know, maybe that's the best thing. But I think maybe you just need to, you know, fit in everywhere. You don't, if you don't have one certain place where you need to fit in, you fit in everywhere.
I do find that seems,
you know, you can connect with the 30-year-old because you obviously have different experiences than they do, which is good. They can learn something from you. You can learn something from them. But also the family, because you have a child. You know, so it's just. So I think it makes you more more well-rounded than people might think. They may have different experiences, but you also have different experiences from them that they can learn from.
Definitely.
So it's not necessarily that one way's one.
Right.
Okay, I'm getting all tongue-tied. One way is right or wrong. I'm saying like these little tongue twisters. But, you know, you just have to find your own path, which you are finding. What kind of message do you want to get out there for everyone who's watching to kind of do away with the stereotypes and judgments? What do you want people to know?
I would just like for people to take a closer look, would probably be, instead of making a quick judgment and then moving on and they've summed me up.
Right.
Whether it be from someone who's my age, who doesn't have kids, hasn't gotten married, hasn't done that route of their life yet, if ever, or from the other side, where someone is married and has kids, or even people who are divorced and have children, they're still in a different place than me, having had him so young. I would just want for people to take basically a second look and maybe try to get to know me a little better, because I find that I've formed my friendships more slowly, because it takes people a while to realize they're like me from both sides. It takes a little bit where they go, oh, right, like if it's from the younger side, like, oh, right, you do still like to go out, right, just because you have a son doesn't mean you never leave your house.
Right.
So they might be slower to invite me out to something, or talk to me about, you know, some of the things they do in their typical like social daily lives that they just assume I don't do anymore. Or on the other side, maybe, you know, I do want to come when they invite the families for, you know, a big barbecue or whatever. Like, I tend to be less included in those sort of things just because, you know, I don't have like the whole family to bring, the husband and the kids.
Also,
and that, you know, that
and it's
whole
also
scenario.
that, you know, just because you're a mother, you don't stop being a woman. It doesn't mean that you stop wanting to do things that, you know, women do and go out and have fun or shop or whatever you want to do. But I think a lot of people may say, okay, well, I don't know, she's not really like us, you know,
a lot of that,
and they assume that, and that's, you know, just kind of like another judgment that they put on without really saying, okay, but what do you like to do, you know, besides, you know, a lot of your time's consumed with your son, I realize, but, you know, what else do you enjoy doing? Because everybody likes to go out and everybody likes to do things, and it's important, I think, for people out there to know that you're more than just a mom. You know, you are a woman who's still fulfilling her dreams, which is difficult in itself to do, but you're doing that on top of raising a child, you know, and I think it gives you that much more power because, like I said, you have all these other experiences that you can bring into your work that other people may not, and you have the challenge of having to balance it, so that means that you want your dream a lot more than maybe other people do who are just sitting there waiting on the couch.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us, Maria. I appreciate
thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on Jessica, and if you have any questions about the show or about Maria, you can email me in the email that will follow in the credits. Have a good day and see you next time on Jessica.